Y'all, Tulsi Gabbard just put rhetorical pause on Neera Tanden and urged the Senate not to confirm her. And it was so beautiful. Let's talk about it. What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning in to this segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Tulsi Gabbard just took Neera Tanden to task. Oh my God. I'm telling you, y'all, when y'all see this, I don't know if you've been on Twitter. I know a lot of y'all don't be on Twitter like that. When y'all see this, it's going to remind you of why you voted for Tulsi in the primary or wrote her in. I know a lot of y'all wrote her in. But also, of course, it's going to remind us, to be frank, just why Neera Tanden is such a horrible pick. Not only just a horrible pick for any job in DC, but very specifically the OMB job, the Office of Management and Budget. But before we go ahead and get started, of course, appreciate it if you could support the show. You can, of course, scan any of these barcodes with your phone if you're watching from your television or iPad. And you can click on the Linktree link in the description below to support the show via Patreon, PayPal, Cash App. You can become a Rockfin Premium member. You can tip us also now on Rockfin. So, really dope feature. So if you want to support the show, you can do so through any of those means. Now, with that being said, let's go and get the show back on the road. Let's see what Tulsi Gabbard had to say about Neera Tanden, people. Neera Tanden thinks the way to reduce our deficit is to steal oil from countries like Libya to pay us back for bombing them, toppling their government, and turning them into a failed state. Joe Biden, is this really the person you want in charge of managing our budget? Now, this is significant for a few reasons, people. Because not only is she calling out Neera Tanden, specifically about Libya, which almost never gets discussed in popular political conversations, then she directly tags Joe Biden to call him out and say, like, you're wrong. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Now, I'm sure Tulsi wasn't naive. She knew, like, she endorsed Joe over, because of the contractual agreements. She kept it professional. Didn't say anything else. But, like, at the same time, like, she tried to give him the benefit of the doubt in her endorsement speech. And I imagine she's feeling pretty let down right now, as are probably a lot of people. Now, in addition to that, Tulsi also screenshotted and posted the Wikileaks dump that quoted Neera Tanden directly. So if you were curious, it's real. She actually did do all that stuff. And that email says, of course, we have a giant deficit. This is from Neera Tanden directly. She said, we have a giant deficit. They have a lot of oil. Most Americans would choose not to engage in the world because of that deficit. If we want to continue to engage in the world, gestures like oil-rich countries partially paying us back doesn't seem crazy to me. Do we prefer cuts to Head Start or WIC or Medicaid because we live in a deficit, and that's what's happening and will be happening even more. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just go ahead and say something real quick. Everything Neera Tanden just said, man, was complete and total bullshit. I just hope y'all know that. I feel like I try not to explain this to this audience, but we got new people watching. It's not true. Yeah, we have a deficit, but our currency is fiat. Primarily, to be honest, because of our sovereignty that we get through military might and the petrodollar, the oil, crude oil, right? We have enough of it, more than enough of it. Barack Obama bragged about the fact that not only do we have more than enough of it, but we got it from ourselves, mostly. And we don't need anybody else's. And he did such a great job of that we should be patting him on the back for making us more oil reliant than we were before. Because now we're reliant on our own oil. Our oil directly funds our economy. to a significant degree now. Because we exported and obviously frack here. This is an excuse to go invade another country and take their oil. Period. The OMB, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Office of Management and Budget, which she would be in charge of, has a budget for the Pentagon, and this is what Tulsi was referring to. But, ladies and gentlemen, Tulsi didn't just stop there, though. She didn't just stop there. And she really does, doesn't she? She really does. But she didn't just stop there. She also had this to say. Neera Tanden's quote-unquote think tank took millions from Wall Street, the UAE, which is the United Arab Emirates, and defense contractors. She advocated taking Libya's oil to pay for bombs we destroyed their country with. At OMB, she'll support more costly regime change wars and military-industrial complex. Senators, I urge you to vote no. She reminds me daily that I made the right decision in endorsing her. Now, these are what some people had to say. This is from Socials MMA. Nick, we actually had him on the show in case you missed it. It was a great episode. I hope you all go watch that. He said, I told y'all some of y'all sleep on Tulsi for some reason. I don't always agree with her, but she is outflanking the squad here. And I gotta say, I do appreciate him specifically mentioning that. It is important to mention that. A lot of people would say here, oh, well, why do you mention the squad in a situation where you're talking about Tulsi? Why do you got to bring her up? Well, ladies and gentlemen, because this is just the nature of our discourse at the moment, where people, in order to figure out who is legitimate and who is not legitimate, they rely on these truisms of some people being more steadfast and principled and quote unquote progressive than others. They constantly compare, and especially Tulsi. Tulsi was compared to AOC and Ilhan Omar and the squad, and even Elizabeth Warren, by the way, without actually being like asked to be compared to her. People just started to them, the people who smeared Tulsi would just decide to compare her to the squad. So what Nick pointed out is that she's outflanking the squad on one of the most important issues in the Joe Biden administration, which is calling out Joe Biden himself, calling out Neera Tanden herself, and then explaining exactly why she is horrible for this position. Meanwhile, the same day, AOC selling t-shirts, sweaters with tax the rich on there. Just for side note, the rich are taxed, but they have so many loopholes that they can get out of them. So how about you work on that, considering that like you're literally on like Wall Street? I mean, I know you're not working on the tax budget and the federal budget, but like still, bro, like you could do something about that. I don't know what you can do, AOC, but you can do something. You're in Congress. Act like it. For the love of God, do something, like anything at this point. But anyway, I digress. But like I said, it is important to make these comparisons, because make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, when the shoe was on the other foot, like what it was when they were trying to say that Tulsi was smearing Ilhan Omar, when she was merely calling out ballot harvesting, which once again, ballot harvesting that the Democrats had just been hurt by in North Carolina this year. Like they had to overturn an entire election because a Republican cheated using ballot harvesting to beat a Democrat. And they tried to use ballot harvesting as a way to attack Tulsi, saying it was ballot harvesting is a right-wing conspiracy, and saying that it exists is somehow smearing Ilhan Omar. And they say, oh, Ilhan's more progressive. Ilhan's more this. AOC's more this. Ilhan's more this. But once again, notice those issues are personal, right? They make it personal about Ilhan Omar, about AOC. Whereas Tulsi keeps it political, keeps it about the people. And that's why her fans love her so much. That's why. Because it's always about politics. Always. And like I said, when she was on the other foot, they're going to compare. And so I'm glad that Nick took the time to remind people, by the way, was a big fan of AOC. He was just praising AOC this last week, just praising her. So it's not like he doesn't like AOC like me. Y'all know I don't like AOC anymore. So, but if he's saying this, he's been praising AOC and he's letting y'all know, like, bro, Tulsi is outflanking AOC and the squad, and this is not a normal. This is a regular thing. This is not. This is at this point habit for her to do this. So appreciate that tweet, Nick. Let's see another tweet that I think should absolutely be seen. So from my boy Frank Analysis, go check out YouTube channel. I'm actually gonna be on there next week. Elizabeth Warren said she agrees with Biden's pick of Neera Tanden. Cenk Uygur said he's rooting for her. Tulsi Gabbard urges Biden to not choose her and senators to not vote for her. But according to Anna Kasparian, Emma Vigilant, and David Dole, Tulsi isn't progressive. Yeah, I'm glad you tagged him, Frank. I'm glad you tagged him, bro. Because they needed to be tagged. They did. You're absolutely 100% right, Frank. 100% right. The one who stood up to Joe Biden. And this, now granted, the argument could be made, well, it would have been nicer for her to stand up to other choices, right? Other picks. True. But outside of Secretary of State, her main, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not been a lot of foreign policy specific picks announced yet. This one is the person who's in control of the budget, which the Pentagon's budget, military industrial complex's budget effectively. And this is Tulsi's wheelhouse. This is her committee, you know what I'm saying? Like Armed Forces Committee. This is what she does. And she's doing it. But once again, there's a reasonable argument that can be made. She should be criticizing basically all of his picks. Understood. But in the context of that tweet, and I'll bring it back up for you guys. In the context of that tweet, what he's saying, what Frank is saying is, yo, like, it's cool if we're going to criticize people, which we should, because no politician should be able to avoid criticism from their constituents. But at the same time, this is a conversation about the people who said not only is she not progressive, not only is she not as progressive as quote unquote people from like the squad or Elizabeth Warren, but they said that she's not progressive at all. They've called her a right wing everything, right? Where they at? Because yeah, Tulsi hasn't called out every pick, but AOC literally praised one of the worst picks that Biden made. Praised it. And he probably did so, like, to be honest, what she do? Because AOC don't do her own research, because it's obvious at this point. What'd she do? Oh, Elizabeth Warren said that was a good pick. This other random progressive said that was a good pick. Therefore, I must like them too. Yeah, she stopped doing that shit though, because she got called out. So let me just say, Tulsi, welcome back. I don't know where you been at. Like, Tulsi's basically been on vacation for like, she ain't ran up for the smoke on Twitter in a long time. She ain't been doing no in-person interviews, so we ain't had no hot takes. But glad you're back. Glad you're keeping it hot and spicy. We're gonna miss you in DC. Lord knows we're gonna miss you in DC, but I'm sure you're gonna go on to do great things, bigger and better things. But of course, in this particular conversation, most importantly, thank you for saying what a lot of other politicians have been afraid to say. And by the way, it includes Bernie Sanders. Unfortunately, that includes AOC, unfortunately. And that's unfortunate because Bernie was the one who literally wrote a letter because of how vitriolic Neera Tanden had been during the primary season. No one else has been bold enough to say exactly this. And of course, we appreciate you using WikiLeaks to expose Neera. Shout out to Assange, free Assange. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what your thoughts are about this. Like this video, share this video, leave a comment below, but more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.